An elevator is a seemingly ordinary device to bring people or goods above or below. I'm talking about the elevator in residential buildings. It would seem to be just a box with a door that is lowered and raised on cables by a winch. But in my situation, it was a little different. Different to the extent that I still can't get over what happened that night. The night I wished I had taken the stairs to the 8th floor. It all started that night when I was coming home from work, tired and barely standing on my feet. It had been a cold night. It had rained the day before, and today the wind was driving all that dampness through the streets. Sometimes a fine nasty rain fell on his head, as if from an atomizer. I wanted to hide in a warm apartment and under a warm blanket. I walked down the street, covering myself from the rain with my hand, and dreaming of a cup of hot tea and a quick nap. I was terribly tired from the day and didn't want to do anything else. I usually walk from work, because in the hole where I live, the shuttle buses stop running early. I can't afford to take a cab. It takes about an hour to walk if you cut through the courtyards, and if you walk along the street, it's an hour and a half. I walked, losing the last of my strength. After an hour on the horizon showed an old 9-story building, still Soviet origin, where on the 8th floor is my den. I've been living here alone for a year, and now I'm on my 2nd. My parents sent me to study in the city, but I've been a slacker all my life. And although a diploma of higher education could be useful only as a board for cutting sausage, I decided to quit my studies and went to earn money. It wasn't much, but how much do I need on my own? As I approached the house, the intercom pierced the night silence of the bedroom neighborhood, and I stepped into the entryway. Despite the intercom and the nice iron door, the entryway was dirty and neglected. It always stank of something, and there were cigarette butts and beer bottles everywhere. Not so in summer, but as soon as the cold weather sets in, all the local youth, instead of doing something useful, sit in the elevators and drink beer. Our elevator is a separate story. Half of the buttons do not work, or work only from the 3rd or 4th time. It is all painted and shit on the floor, with used condoms and cigarette butts. There are few residents in the entrance, mostly old people. I usually walk up to the 8th floor to avoid being in this box with doors. But today was an exception. I was so tired that my legs wouldn't hold. Of course, I chose the elevator over the stairs. I pressed the elevator call button. There was a rumble from above, and a minute later, the doors opened. I stepped in carefully, trying not to step where I shouldn't, and pressed the 8th floor button. Of course, it didn't work the first time. I pushed and pushed until the elevator finally moved. I stood there, my body getting heavy, my eyes falling asleep, but the nasty smell of urine kept me awake. Suddenly, the elevator started to slow down, and then the lights went out. I wasn't surprised. It happens a lot here. But when the elevator came to an abrupt stop a few seconds later, I started to get nervous. As long as I've lived here, I've never been stuck in an elevator. It was pitch black. The doors wouldn't open. I took my cell phone out of my pocket to light it up, but the battery shows 10%. You can't shine it for long. I tried to call the dispatcher, pressing the button 20 times, but there was no answer. My anxiety was growing. I started trying to open the elevator doors with my hands, gathering all my remaining strength. I opened them a little and saw that I was stuck between floors. Besides, it was dark as night in the elevator. Even the light bulbs were not lit. Suddenly, I noticed something strange in the darkness. Someone ran quickly from one corner to the other. An unpleasant feeling swept over me, and I began to scream for help. My scream echoed through the entryway. I heard laughter in response. It grew louder and seemed abnormal, as if several voices were laughing at once. Not just one person. I was standing in the elevator, and then there was a knock on the elevator door. From somewhere in the darkness, a pale hand with long claws reached out to me. The laughter grew louder and louder until that hand disappeared. I tried to open the doors again, but nothing worked. As soon as I calmed down for a moment, there was another knock, this time from the roof of the elevator. I held my breath in horror and tried to hide in a corner. Suddenly, the elevator jerked violently. The doors opened, and I tried to slip out. When I looked out of the elevator, I saw a silhouette in the darkness. It was something horrible, a woman-like figure with long claws and sparse hair. In the darkness, I could only make out her tattered clothes and a face covered in blisters. She walked to the elevator, extended her arm and touched me, leaving a scratch on my shoulder. I felt a sharp pain, as if claws were piercing me. Terror and panic completely overpowered me, and I lay on the floor of the elevator bleeding. At some point, the elevator suddenly moved on. The lights came on, and I woke up from the horrible dream, lying in my apartment, alive and whole.